All right, hello and welcome. We are live with another Sales Shiro episode. My name is John Golden from Sales Pop Online, Sales Magazine, and Pipeliner CRM, joining you as usual from a sunny San Diego, and joined as usual by my colleague Martha Neumeister, who is in lovely Vienna, Austria. How are you doing, Martha?
Hi, thanks. I'm fine.
And today we're delighted to be joined by Erica Franklin, who is in Ghana in Africa. Our first time having a guest from Ghana. So welcome, Erica.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and Erica is the global sales director of Sisters in Sales. She's one of five leaders in an all-women remote team supporting a community of 12,000 plus and driving efforts to increase the number of women in color in sales globally by providing a safe space for career navigation, networking, and building professional skills. And you're also the co-founder of Africa Growth Leaders as well. And you are a global sales director, a sales and partnership consultant and coach, and fractional sales leader. And what we're going to talk about today is how to build long-lasting customer relationships, and how to really build trust and ongoing relationships with customers, because it's one of the hardest things to do. Is number one, it's hard enough to land a customer, but to actually maintain them and turn them into an advocate and build trust is one of the hardest things. So um, one thing I know, Erica, that you're very strong on, and that's preparation. So how does before you even somebody even becomes a customer, or even during that period of time, how much does preparation and really knowing, getting putting in the work before you engage, in a presentation or a conversation, how much does that help set the foundation for long-term customer relations?
This was one of my favorite questions. I love preparation just because, one, when you're going after new business, right, you definitely need to know who your customer is, who's the primary contacts that you're going after. So if you're doing outreach on LinkedIn, or you're doing outreach via email, or you're using some type of tool to pull down different roles at these companies that you're going after, your prospects, it's really important to know who that person is, what the company does, what their problem is. So reviewing financial documents, going to be a little stalkerish, as I call it, on LinkedIn to follow some things that they posted recently. So doing that deep research really helps you thrive when you go to present, because if it definitely shows a lot of respect for the contacts that are on the call. It also shows that you know your business, right? And you know the people that you're trying to convince and persuade to buy. The other thing I will tell you, John and Martha, is that it also is vital. I know that now, especially after COVID, we went virtual, right? A lot of people are doing Zoom calls, Google Meets, and so forth. And so, really valuing the client's time. So, if you don't need to do an hour, right, call, or a 45-minute call, you can do it in 30 minutes. Really be cognizant of the time that you're preparing for as well, and having those heavy hitter punchlines. Again, directly addressing the client needs on those calls immediately, so that way you can close the gap, right, in a quick manner while being respectful.
Yeah, no, and absolutely, and I mean those are all great points, and I think the business of business, like understanding the business of business, I think that's really important, and as you said, is like really understanding as much as you can about those who you're going to be speaking to, which is a big thing on respect, and you mentioned LinkedIn, and seeing what they posted and all of that stuff, which I think is always good, but Erica, the one thing that always gets me is like somebody who just writes great post, and the minute somebody writes great post, they haven't read it.
Yes,
And
correct.
so it's really important that you actually reference something you post, show that you actually did them the courtesy of actually reading their content.
Yes, I would say definitely tie it to what you do, tie it to even
Mhm.
your offerings, right? I see that you're saying, an example would be like, I see that you're mentioning X, Y, and Z. Our
Mhm.
company provides, these services. Would love a quick chat. I know people send a lot of those, those messages on LinkedIn, which sometimes is very aggravating, right?
Mhm.
So again, it's vital to do your preparation. People hear all the time from different companies trying to get their business, but why do you stand out? What can you do better than those other companies that are reaching out to them? Is really key.
Yeah. Martha, I think we already have a question from the audience.
Love it.
Yes, sorry, I was typing in the chat. Give me 1 second. Okay. How can junior sales professionals start developing long-term relationships early in their careers?
Ah.
Right. So that's a great question. Again, I do think it is this research piece, learning how to research. So not spinning your wheels, looking into tools that are going to take you hours and hours and hours, but really formulating a process that works for you. So again, if you're going out to find different contacts at a company, which tools are you going to use? How are you going to use LinkedIn? How are you going to use email? How are you going to use in-person meetings? So really like critiquing yourself and how you show up, and also fine tuning how you engage with your customers. That would be my key. It'll help you in the long run when you're first starting out. Of course, you will pivot, you will again refine those skills as you continue to move up the chain, and whether it's your own business or at a company, but those things will help you in the long run to be able to create those long-term relationships. The other thing I will say is to also don't be so narrow-minded when it comes to contacts, right? So you might have like a key contact that you're going after because you're like, oh yeah, if you're going after like the VP of sales or somebody that directly has the bag, as we call it,
Mhm.
right, for what your contract is. Be open to maybe reaching out to their product person or to someone else if you can't get engagement from them, and be able to kind of persuade somebody else at the company to be able to hear you out and to then get that person that you're trying to get on the line. So those are a couple of tips that I would say for junior salespeople. Just be so open-minded to where you have all these different contacts. And then we'll talk a little bit about that, I'm sure, later, about
Mhm.
how you know that you're building a long-term, relationship when you have multi-threads within a company. But then also, refining your actual sales process yourself and how you're engaging with your customers.
Yeah, no, those are great, and I think building those good habits early in your career will really help you, because I'll tell you, it's sometimes it's the more senior, tenured salespeople suddenly later on in their career start to take shortcuts and forget to do some of these things and wonder why they hit a slump. And often it's because they've forgotten to do a lot of the fundamentals. So always, develop a really good, solid base of fundamental skills like Erica was
Yeah.
referencing there.
Yeah, John, I would compare it to sports, right?
Mhm.
So as we know, folks like LeBron James, he practices. Kobe used to practice all the time, right? The same shot thousands of times. You
Mhm.
still need to do that in sales to be able to get your pitch right. It's going to change all the time depending on the industry and customers that you're going after. So definitely practice makes perfect in sales.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny you mentioned Kobe, because that was one of the things. Kobe Bryant, apparently, like, he was always first to training, but he would practice and people, you would assume, oh, practicing trick shots and this and that. No, he was practicing his high school drills over and over,
Mhm.
because he knew, like, that it's the foundations that make all the difference. So, Erica, storytelling is a really good approach, and something that you talk a lot about. How does storytelling help in building good, solid customer relationships?
Like storytelling is the key, right? When you think about how you buy in everyday life, so how Apple sells you a phone, how Nike sells you a shoe, or actually selling you the experience, right? Or the actual
Mhm.
inspiration, right? Because we know that it's not actually about the product sometimes with companies. But the storytelling that you see in some of these commercials and so forth, it makes you feel like that you're in the moment with whatever you're watching. That's exactly how you want your customers to feel when you go to do these sales presentations. Of course, it's great to do it in person, but if you have to do it virtually, really think about the things that you're touching on, think about the client's needs, think about personally what you talked about with the client and how, their job might be weighing them down, and how you can actually relieve some of that pressure with whatever products or services that you're pitching to them, really making that story personal for them. So even calling people out on the call to say, like, Vanessa, John, you teach these, or, Martha and John, you teach these, or you have these teams, right? If they use this product, they would be able to save X, Y, and Z time, which will save you X, Y, and Z headache, right? Like we referred to in the first original call when we prep for this. So really making it that personal touch, and also being able to tie into the emotional connection and relatability is key.
Yeah, and the thing about storytelling is, I mean, we mostly all come from storytelling cultures. I know in Ireland that's our background, everything handed down. I'm sure Ghana is the same, handed down through generations. A lot of it was stories, sometimes not even written down, but just handed on. And so stories really resonate with us in a very big way. Sorry, Martha, you had another question from the. This is great, Erica. I love it when the chat gets going. Completely knocks me off my questions.
Me too.
Yeah. So Martha, you got another one?
Yeah, I have one regarding storytelling. How can salespeople learn to tell better stories, even if they don't see themselves as natural storytellers?
This is a great question. So I think that if you dig into the archive, so when you come to a company, or if you're building your own company and you have success rates, right? Going back, finding customers who can give you testimonials, who can tell their own story, is even more powerful than you actually telling the story for them. So if you're able to actually get the customer to capture a video, give you a quote, stand in front of people and speak about, the products and services that you have, that's even better. If you don't have that, then taking that information that they might provide to you, or remembering when you close a specific deal, helps to really turn that story into a real world impact capture for the other referrals, right? Or the prospects that you have in your pipeline that would love to hear how, similar businesses did it already, or how they use the product, how they benefited from your products or service. That's really powerful. So I would recommend that you go into your, archives, or ask people at your company, what clients have been successful, read about that, going back to research, right? Really knowing how these other customers were able to benefit and be successful will help you tell the story of your products and service for the next customer.
Yeah, absolutely great. And Erica, here also moving into an area I know that's very dear to your heart. So how can sales professionals ensure their relationship building efforts are inclusive and resonate with diverse customer backgrounds? Because let's face it, today, I mean, you could be selling, because it's everything so global and connected. I mean, you could be selling to people from a bunch of different cultures, different countries, different regions, different ethnicities, all of that. And so how do you ensure that you're able to resonate with people across cultures and different backgrounds?
Well, going back again, I know we keep talking about research, but really going and digging up information about those customers and people that you're going to actually have on the call. So I would even take it as far as whoever's organizing the call, ask them who is going to be on the call, right? Give you a list of their names and their roles. If they have their LinkedIn URLs, I tell you, I should work for LinkedIn the way I always talk about them. But but if you have that information, you can go in and kind of get to learn how people work, how they see the world, how they see their own role. I think the other things that I would recommend is leading with empathy and intention, right? Definitely understanding people, understanding what life stage they're in. So I work with a lot of different, I would say, age level prospects as well as customers. So whether that's Gen Z, whether that's middle-aged folks, or whether that's kind of our older population, which that could, there's definitely been these finer kind of shells of life within each of those. So motherhood, fatherhood. So really understanding when people can take calls, if they have to reschedule, not getting upset. understanding that people are actually human. So that's something to be, quite aware of. But I think those are some of the keys to really understand. And again, understanding culture, right? You have European countries who actually take lunch, right? And like to socialize and go out with their coworkers or go out with their families. You have most people don't work on the weekends, right? So don't email people, or maybe schedule that email to go out on Monday instead of Sunday night, just to be respectful. So there's a lot of things to learn. But I also think that if you don't have anywhere to start, you can always ask, right? How would you like to be communicated to? What's the best channel to reach you on? Some of my customers like to use WhatsApp versus, email. So really understanding who you're dealing with and how best to reach them, so you can get the responses that you need. Get the invoices paid, get the contract signed, and also get people to engage with your products.
Yeah, and I love that, Erica. Just underline that one about, making sure that, you communicate with people how they want to be communicated with. You understand their circumstances. I've seen it too many times. I just give you a quick example I know somebody who is a sales coach who was doing a ride along with a salesperson, and a prospect or something texted the salesperson, asked them a simple question. Salesperson immediately called them, and there was it was a bit of an awkward conversation, right? And when they got off the phone, the coach said, oh, well, what happened there? And he goes, oh, well, they texted me a question, so I just called them to answer them quickly. And he goes, well, why didn't you text him back the answer, or text back, is it okay to call you, or do you just want me to answer by text? Again, because basically what you just did was, I text you, you call me. If I'd wanted to call you, I'd probably have called you. So just that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And then also, I think the new things that people have been using for a while now, it's like video snaps of themselves pitching, audio messaging, and so forth. So there's a lot of ways that you can engage with folks, but finding that right way is always best, because people are all different. People have different schedules. Some people want quiet, right? So they like to text or email. So just taking those things into consideration.
Yeah. Hey, Martha, there's another good question there about.
Yes. How do you handle a situation when a strong client relationship starts to fade? I hope I
Ooh.
pronounce it correctly.
Yeah. So I guess you can take this two different ways. So if you're doing this virtually and you realize that the relationship is starting to fade, maybe over a phone call, maybe the way that they're responding, I would actually set up a call, or if you are able to go in person, be able to do that. I will tell you, in my career, being able to see people in person really shows you how they're doing, right? Because they may be hiding something that they don't want you to know. Not to say it's a negative thing to hide, but not a lot of people like to talk about their problems outright, especially to somebody that they're just building a relationship with or buying from. I will tell you that seeing people in person, so we have, events where I can see some of my customers, I'll watch them, right? So I'll watch them in crowds. I know this sounds a little over the top, but I think that this is part of why I have been successful, is because I'll watch them in a room. If I see them standing alone, I'll go up to them, engage with them, ask if they're okay, do they need anything. If you see them in the room kind of, not smiling, the people that you work with, if they're very outgoing, they're moving around, ask them, are you okay? Would you like me to help you? Would you like me to find something? Do you need a moment alone? So really doing that, they will open up to you once they, definitely realize that you actually care, again, that they're human. People will start to talk to you and be like, I'm not feeling well today, or, Erica, the product really pissed me off last week and we had major issues, right? So we should talk about it. People will start to really open up to you and give you the inside scoop, so then you can actually make a change. So that's, if you can see them in person, great. If you can't, make that call. Ask to be on a video call so you can see each other, you can really engage, and then be open to listening, because they could tell you one thing, it could be from their, and it's definitely from their perspective, Just take it in, understand where they're coming from. Again, that empathy as well as that intention really goes a long way. And then you'll be able to fix it because I'm sure you'll hear their problem, you'll have an understanding of where they're coming from and be able to pivot, inside of a solution that you have.
Yeah, and actually, and this leads us in like flipping this question on its head a little bit. When you're building a customer or client relationship, what are some of the key indicators that you look for to assess like whether this is a relationship that's on track to become a long term and fruitful and mutually beneficial one?
Yeah, so there are a few. So number one is who are the people that are actually on your, I would say your cadence calls, right? Is it the person who is not the decision maker, but maybe they're the voice within the company, kind of going out for you, going out on a limb for you, I would even say, and convincing the other people in the company to, buy into what you're trying to sell? Are they actually the people who hold the money? The decision makers, those who are directly going to influence the budget. Are they in the C-suite? So looking at what level of stakeholders you have. If you do not have a decision maker on the phone, right, I wouldn't say to go in straight ahead and be like, there, let's get Martha on the line, right? I wouldn't go that far, right, initially. But later on, I would say, we've had some great conversations. Would love to, I know that Martha is your boss, would love to invite her to the call just to hear how things are going. And if, what we've been talking about for the last few months is really compelling enough to see if she can make a decision. That, you kind of ease your way in to getting some of those key folks on the phone. The other thing is pay attention to consistency and communication. So if people aren't following up with you, they're not responding to your emails, they're getting upset that you're calling it rather than texting, pay attention to those things and be able to change those things. And again, like I said before, paying attention to those things like body language and understanding will go a long way into making a short-term kind of relationship turn into a long-term. The last thing I will say is going back to what we just talked about. If a client is open and transparent with you, they most likely are going to be around a little longer, right? Because they feel like they built a longer relationship. Think about, I know this may be a little bit too personal, but think about like your personal relationships, your friendships, your marriages, right? When people are open and transparent, they're in it with you. They're in
Mhm.
it, if something goes wrong, they're willing to stick it out, they're willing to talk about it. So that's how you know that those, relationships are going to last for a while as opposed to short term.
Yeah, and those are going to and you're going to have those kind of relationships if you're consistent and if you build trust and they trust that you've got their back. Because I always think, Erica, that's always the thing. I think sometimes people overlook is they're so excited to do the deal and get the new customer and get everything over the line that they don't realize that's also a period of that can be quite emotional for the customer because they've made an investment. They want it to work out. Sometimes if you leave them alone too much at the beginning, they start to feel like, oh, I'm in this on my own. But if you're there with them, especially at the beginning, and you're like, I'm here for you, I'll make sure everything is taken care of, then you build that trust that later on could really make the difference.
Yeah, I was going to say that also in that viewpoint that you just said, offering up, schedule calls, if even if it's you have to, remove them from the calendar, just giving that space of time. If you want to join, if you want to talk, if we need to catch up on anything, having like a weekly or even bi-monthly call, depending on the cadence of your communications, just so that that person can join, you can touch base how they're doing, how things are going with the product. That goes a long way. Also, email comms, or again, however they want to be communicated to, just checking in, providing them with key updates that that are important to them. So if they are like a product buyer, right,
Mhm.
they are key on features and so forth, and they have a team that are very technical, making sure that you're updating, giving people the information, the inside scoop of what's going on. So there's ways around that to be able to build relationships. But again, think about your friends, your marriages, these types of relationships. When you give people time and space and comfort, they'll give it back to you.
Absolutely. And I know we have a question about digital first, but actually ties in with the question we're going to ask anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of advancements in technology and AI, et cetera, that are impacting sales, the sales landscape quite dramatically. So what advice would you give to salespeople and sales team about integrating such technologies in their workflows? But also, as somebody asked in the chat, how do we maintain the human connection in a digital first world?
Yeah, really enjoyed this question because it's something that we talk about all the time, I think, especially on panels and so forth with all the enhancements and new tools. But I think that since sales, you know, it's not just about transactions.
Mhm.
We've been talking about this relationship, this whole entire call, right? It's all about the trust, it's all about the connection and problem solving, and AI can't do that, right? Well, let me take back the problem solving. It can definitely problem solve. But the trust and connection piece really comes with that being a human.
Mhm.
And if you think about when you go to buy, yes, there are some things that you can go and purchase. You can get a lot of things on delivery, you can go through apps. But when it comes to larger purchases or things that are going to even impact others in your household, let's say, because again, if you think about companies as like a household, right, you have all these people that are going to be impacted. You want to be able to have a little bit more in-depth conversation, know a little bit more about how it works. And AI, can't always do that. It can definitely give you the data back, but it can't give you that personal touch. It can't do all of the storytelling that you can do in your voice, having that empathy and intention, like I said before. And so those things will always be looked for when it comes to salespeople, that emotional intelligence, that empathy, and that intuition, knowing when to kind of pivot and so forth. And sometimes AI has an issue with those things. And
Mhm.
I don't think it'll ever be able to replace us fully. I do think it enhances our roles, right?
Yep.
It actually gives us more time back to do all of those things I just mentioned, right? So taking away some of those task-oriented things that we want, being able to give us great data to prove our facts when we go to sell, and also being able to, in some instances, create presentations and email templates and so forth. Like those things definitely will help us, but it also gives us the time back to go and make that call or book that flight to go see people in person.
Yeah, and I know I agree, and I think that's the key part of it is that it can give you that time to really work on the relationship part, to do the part that, let's face it, you probably got into sales in the first place to want to do, to work with people and solve problems, not to do all of this other stuff that you've had to do. And now, hope a lot of tools, workflow automation, AI can do all of that, so you can focus on the good stuff and really where your talents lie.
Yeah. And that I do love AI. I will say some of the tools, John and Martha, if you don't mind me, just mentioning some of the tools that I
Oh no,
use on
absolutely.
a regular basis. I use Sybil, all right, which is an AI-powered sales call and
Mhm.
analytics tool. Of course, ChatGPT is my best friend. And there's other tools too, like Claude, which is great for conversational AI. And then, of course, HubSpot, right? So inside of HubSpot, there's a lot of AI capabilities that can be used to be able to streamline processes, and then Monday.com.
Mhm.
So there's a bunch of tools that are in my wheelhouse that I shine a light on or try to tell other people about. And those are just a few, and that those tools have opened up hours of my time to be able to go and do that research that we talked about in the beginning, or end up, like I said, making time to be able to see customers in person.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this time has flown. We're bumping up against the end of our session. Oh, just one quick one. What are some common mistakes that salespeople make when trying to build long-term relationships?
Yeah. So some common mistakes is moving too fast, right? Or
Mm.
I would say moving too fast. I would also say presenting the same way you do to every single customer and not customizing your approach and your intent. And then lastly, I would say, not having the communication skills. You're just sending out email blasts to see who can come back, right? Or those LinkedIn messages to say, let me just blast everybody, right? And let's see who could come back as a customer, and not being intentional. So those are three things I think that, immediately that come to the top of my head.
Yeah. No, I tell you, those automated LinkedIn messages are the ones that get me the most. Is especially because I would feel like somebody sends you a connection request and it's personalized and it's like, oh blah, and you feel, oh thank you, this person has really done the research, and you hit the accept, and then you get a automated pitch straight back at you, and you just go, yep, you just went from being 1 up to being 10 down.
Yep. Yep. I totally agree.
Yeah. Well, listen, Erica, this has been fantastic. All of Erica's information will be below here. But before you go, Erica, please do tell people a little bit more about you and what you do.
Yeah, definitely. So, again, I'm Erica Franklin. I am the Global Director of Sales for Sisters in Sales, which we're actually launching our eighth annual summit. The communications will go out today. The summit is held in September. But that's just one of my roles, like John mentioned before. My love for sales has been over many, many years, and now I'm pivoting into being able to train and upskill and inspire others to take over the sales industry as well. And so doing that in a couple of different roles with a few different organizations, as well as my own consultancy. And so if you would like to connect with me, feel free. The best would be LinkedIn, if you can reach out to me and connect with me. But otherwise, once you connect with me there, I'm open to sharing my contact information.
Yeah. And remember, send a proper personalized message if you're
Please.
reaching out on LinkedIn. Absolutely.
Thank
But listen,
you.
thanks again, Erica. Hey, Martha, thank you for running the chat. And thank you all for
Welcome.
for joining us and listening. It's always a fantastic pleasure of ours to showcase top women sales inspiration and thought leaders on this. We love doing it. Again, my name is John Golden, Sales Pop Online Sales Magazine, Pipeliner CRM. Same with Martha, my colleague in Vienna. And thanks again, Erica, our first guest live from Ghana. Isn't it such a great world we live in now, that where we can do San Diego, Vienna, Austria, and Ghana all at one pop like
I
this?
love it.
It's fantastic. So thanks again. Thank you all for joining us. Thanks for the great questions and all the comments in the chat. I mean, the interaction is fantastic. And again, we really appreciate you taking our time. And please do share the recording of this with other people who you think might be interested. Eric has shared so many great insights and wisdom. So thanks again, and we'll see
Thank
you.